You know what's interesting, folks? Guess who came on? Where is he? Where is he? Guess who came on CNBC to defend to defend Tesla and Elon? And by the way, you know what? Maybe we will also open up at the end of this. Towards the end of the show, I'm going to open up with StreamYard's link so anyone can hop in the show. I think it might be a good week for people to call in the show and give their thoughts pro or against what's happened this week. But guess who comes on CNBC? Our friend Gary Black. Let's see what he has to say.
Gary Black, future fund managing partner. Gary, we've gone down this road in a different way in the past. I remember when we had a conversation just about the amount of time and effort he was spending on Twitter when he was acquiring the company and running it. Concerned you a bit at that point. How much does this concern you at this point with just what continue to be these decisions by him to engage on these controversial topics that seem to alienate a lot of people?
Well, look, we're investment managers and we get paid to find stocks that are going to, triple over the next 5 years. And our view is, despite remarks like he made, which we don't like, and I can't, embrace what he said or even condone it at all. I think the stock is still a great stock because EV adoption today is 12 and it's going to go to 60 over the next 7 years. And Tesla right now has about 16% share of that EV space. And with Cybertruck, a refreshed Model 3, and most importantly, a $25,000 vehicle, we think it can still, grow its volumes 30 to 35% a year. As a growth manager, I cannot find growth stocks that have volume growth of 30 to 35% a year, earnings growth of 40% a year, trading at 40 times. So, the investment question we have to ask is, will this impact the brand? I don't know if it's anti-Semitic what he said or not. I don't know if that's true. But yeah. What I'm trying to figure out as an investor, is it going to impact the brand? Is it going to cause consumers, rather than think about charging, convenience, and safety, and performance, and the technology, are they going to be saying, hey, it's run by a CEO who, embraced a post that talked about, hatred of one group versus another.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, I think consumers are going to evaluate the product on its merits and not on the CEO.
So you're not worried then, Gary? I mean, again, and by the way, I said this earlier, I know a number of people who are close to, or at least somewhat close to Musk, and, they don't think he's an anti-Semite. I don't.
I don't
but he does make these decisions, Gary, to engage in things. By the way, he encourages it, though, by choosing to either post or point to certain tweets and the like. But you don't seem to think it's going to matter in terms of people's willingness to embrace the brand.
I think at the end of the day, Tesla has a best-in-class product. They are the best at manufacturing. They can drive costs down the quickest. And look, they've shown an ability to figure out what consumers are going to want long before GM, Ford, Stellantis, and everybody else. And I think that's going to continue. I don't want to comment on whether his comment was anti-Semitic or not. I don't know if that's important, but I don't think the consumer at the end of the day is going to hold the CEO's comments in their, what I call a purchase decision of whether to buy a Tesla. I could be wrong, but
no. Okay, so you know what's really interesting? By the way, I generally agree. Right, the general consumer, I don't think they even notice the headlines that happen, and this might blow over. And Elon's clarified that, that he's not pushing for hatred of anyone. But what's interesting is, do you guys not remember Gary Black when Ross was running for board of directors, and almost like Gary was almost running, and there was this huge push for the brand reputation is over in California because Elon is pushing all these right-wing policies and saying that, we should build a wall and, all this stuff. And, the brand reputation is going to kill Tesla's sales, and it has, and that's what's happening. And Gary was very staunchly saying, look, the brand reputation is taking a massive hit because of these political tweets Elon's pushing. But now when it comes to this controversy, Gary is saying that actually none of this matters when it comes to Tesla demand, because all that matters is specs and pricing. So I'm not saying that Gary's talking out of both sides of his mouth, but I kind of think he is here, because just a few months ago, he said the exact opposite. Now, maybe he's come to clarify in his point, and now he's saying, look, I was wrong last, but now I actually do think it doesn't matter. Or maybe it's the fact that he doesn't have the same amount of pressure from his clients coming that he did last time. So it's interesting. It's interesting to me. I'm just analyzing this a little bit and just looking at it from that perspective. And it's interesting seeing Gary say this.
That, to me, at the end of the day, is what's the most important to think about.
Well, the decision these
Sorry, yes, Moon, right. It was the Twitter overhang. When the Twitter overhang or the X overhang specifically happened, Gary was pushing for this huge overhang and the fact that people didn't want to buy Teslas because Elon Musk was associating himself with free speech and all these quote unquote right-wing things. But now when it comes to this controversy, Gary's saying, what Elon says actually never mattered. It's just about pricing and specs. Interesting.
days about whether to buy a Tesla or any EV seems to be more about price and or the charging network and how inconvenient it may be. I mean, there seems to be a growing consensus. Maybe that's not the right word, but at least concern that EV growth is slowing. You don't seem to share that concern.
The data doesn't support that, David. When you look at the data, and we publish it every quarter, you could see that in the third quarter, EV adoption globally is at 12%, and fourth quarter, it's growing nicely. So could you say the growth has slowed? Yeah, it's slowed, but it's not going down. And as long as you continue to see, as you've seen in Norway, as you've seen in the Netherlands, as you've seen in China, as long as EV adoption grows from, again, do the math, 12% globally to 60, and that's our forecast, but others have forecasts that are similar, between now and 2030, you're going to get 35% volume growth. And then the question is, how much is pricing going to come down by? Cybertruck is going to be priced, and that's coming out, at the end of the month. That's going to be a $70,000 vehicle. So while I do think you're going to see some pressure on pricing, you're going to see some offsetting products like Cybertruck that are going to cause pricing to continue to move higher, average selling price. And I think that the big investment question is, have auto gross margins bottomed? They hit 16% in the third quarter because, as you know, they took pricing down. Have we seen the last of that? And what we've seen the last couple of weeks is prices have actually started to go the other way. They've had 3 separate price hikes in China, and the rumor is that they're going to have another one next week. So as long as I believe that A, EV adoption can continue to grow from 12 to 60, which is what we're thinking, and B, the gross margins have bottomed, you want to be in this stock at 55 times earnings, putting up 40% earnings growth, regardless what Elon Musk is saying. I do think also that Elon's a smart guy. I've seen him in the past where he'll say something that, later he realizes is not so smart and he will delete his post. I would be surprised to see him not talk about this topic for a while because he's got 120,000 people who work at Tesla who depend on the Tesla brand staying, the strongest in class. And I don't think he wants to hurt those 120,000 people if all of a sudden the consumer's saying, I'm not going to buy Tesla because the CEO is making dumb comments.
So, okay. And you know what? What's interesting is what I think people forget a little bit. And by the way, we just got a breaking news tweet from Elon. Hold on, let me just pull this up. Elon replied to David Sachs' tweet saying, Thiel's Law, a startup messed up at its founding, cannot be fixed. Elon Musk says Tesla was insanely messed up at its founding, but now it's worth $750 billion. Also, while I have an immense respect for Peter's intellect, he did explicitly pass on funding Tesla at a $70 million valuation, despite being offered priority shares. Interesting.